Hello and welcome to my friend the Rainbow Circle. This will be another one of those self-indulgent episodes where I talk about Metatron cubes, or my version of a Metatron cube. One of my Olipo restrictions or challenges that I give myself um, is anytime I run across a number, it has a particular sort of connection. Whenever I reach 72, connects to Metatron. Semi-randomly, Metatron had 72 wings. This is what I'm saying about self-indulgent. Who else cares about Metatron 72 wings? But I don't care. I started recording these videos partly to record lots of this kind of stuff in case I fell over dead and I never told anybody about this, because I have this weird fixation on keeping all this stuff in my head for no good reason and not writing it down. So I'm going to record it. So the Metatron cube is how I organize. I have 14 different story nodes, like, is what I tend to call them. And sometimes I call them collections, although they're not necessarily collections because they're very flexible. And each sort of story can shift between them. So, hey, CQ. Hey, baby. Oh, move down. There we go. I love you, but move out of the way. There you go. Stories can shift between them, so you can pretty much take any story and figure out which node it belongs in, which one of the 14 nodes it belongs in. I kept this up there from last time I did a video on this, and it kind of got smudged. And so I fixed a little bit of it. But I kind of like the chaotic quality of it. I like chaos, clearly. But I did want to talk about my story project. I have 29 stories. I just got a new one. It was 22 solicited prompts. I'm getting my counting backwards sometimes, but 22 solicited prompts and 7 unsolicited prompts, and I just got a new solicited prompt, so now it's 30. So 23 solicited prompts and 7 unsolicited prompts. And so part of the way of organizing it, the goal was 28, and I've gone beyond that, but the goal was 28, and part of the reason why the goal was 28 is because I have 14 nodes, and I thought, oh, it's so simple. I could just put 2 stories in each of the nodes, and it sort of corresponds with days of the week. So I could do 4 stories, one for each of the days of the week, counting 1 through 7, and then recounting over again. So Monday would be number 1. So Monday would be mute, but also it would be number 8, circles and circles. It doesn't work that way. And a lot of it is kind of arbitrary. So semi-arbitrary or flexible, floating in between the nodes. The dogs are gonna knock everything over. Hold on. Okay, sorry. I have a tighter shot, so if I ever looks like I'm worried that everything's gonna be knocked over, it's because of my precious babies. Okay, so what was I even saying? So a lot of it could float in between. So like I've been writing Little Women, which is a Troubles and Struggles story. So Troubles and Struggles, that would be 5. So that should be Friday, but I've been writing on a Wednesday. It's most of that kind of stuff is really arbitrary. But Troubles and Struggles, thematically, is about golems, things that inanimate objects that have come to life. And the first 7, the blue hexagon. I'm saying it's a Metatron cube. Yes, I realize it's 2 hexagons, and it's not exactly a Metatron cube, so it doesn't exactly look like a cube. It's sort of loosely. Oh, okay, just be still. Okay, it's sort of loosely inspired by the Metatron cube. It's not exactly a Metatron cube, but the Little Women is about golems. It's about these golems. There you go. These little boy golems. Primarily, so it would be Troubles and Struggles. So number 5. It's also about female messiahs. I have a whole series about that. So that'd be the Incarnate. So you can take a look at pretty much any story and categorize them in these 14 nodes. But you can also, it's flexible enough so that if you're trying to arrange 28 stories, that was my goal. I'm at 30 now, which is a good problem to have. But if you arrange 28 stories along 14 nodes and try to put 2 in each, you have to do a lot of readjusting. That's why you got to be really flexible. So, like Little Women as an example, it's about female messiah, so I could put it in number 5, The Troubles and Struggles. I could put it in number 7 up here, The Incarnate. So you could pick pretty much any story. Harry Potter's on the top of my head just because I've been listening to book 4. Went to a wrestling show in Columbia last night, and Cal and I listened to a big chunk, about 2 hours of book 4. Okay, be still. So, and that's a messianical character. So, I might be tempted to say, Harry Potter, I'm going to put that in The Incarnate. The Incarnate's about female messiahs, really exclusively. The Babel Fox one right here, that's about power derived from ambition. So you could put Voldemort there. I don't really have a spot for male messiahs, but yeah, I mean, that would be if Hermione turned out to be the messianical character. She would go right there, for example. But it has to do with a lot of magical creatures, like Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them would definitely go on The Living Needle. That's about different idiosyncratic species. But somebody with a birth defect, that would go in Mute. And so, I have a series of stories about a character named Dave Lomax, who was a human being born into just some other species. Like, I have one story where he's born into a shrimp family. I have one story where he's born into a snake family, for example, just in this series. So that could be birth defect. I usually put it in The Living Needle, though. I'll do a separate video talking about where that idea came from. Is there something happening? The dogs are acting like there's something happening. Anyway, so it's about an animal species. That's why I put it in The Living Needle. But it's also 1111 because the goal is 11 Dave Lomax stories about being born into a different species. So it could go here, or it could go, Mute right in the middle. So just with this 30 story sequence, most of them are actually Living Needle stories because they're about, I call it the Opal Bean War because they're about these species of these different plants, and most of the Living Needle stories are about plant monsters. The Living Needle, the original story, was about living scarecrows. So most of the Living Needle stories are plant monsters. But there are a handful of Mute stories, but a bunch of the Incarnate stories, a bunch of characters that come from that series. And so, just in writing the story, sometimes that's useful. Be still. In writing the story, sometimes it's useful. That didn't end up happening this time, but if I have a really vague idea, so like if I solicit a prompt and I have kind of a loose idea, and I'm not sure what characters I'm going to use, if I put it, certain ones of these, if I put it in a certain node, the characters are just kind of automatically part of that node. So, some of them have tighter sort of nodes, like Tiny Hotel. Tiny Hotel's about number 9. There you go. Whenever I get to number 9, I try to find a Tiny Hotel reference, but number 9 right there is about 9 characters. So if I put something in that node, it probably has to do, has to have some sort of connection to those 9 characters. And metacarpals, that's another one with a limited number of characters. Slaughterboxes is mystery stories, and primarily it's about a particular detective that I always use, Bird and I Parnassus. But it doesn't have to be. There are other detectives. So it's a thematic one. It's particularly for detective stories, but usually it has the same character, but not always. And I think Life Abundance Apocalypse is more about the storytelling form, sort of that loose, arbitrary, improvisational form. Let's see. Circles and Circles. Circles and Circles is kind of a tricky one in this kind of project because that was born from a Story a Day project that I've done over several years. So I can't do this one as a story day project. So there's 141 of those circles and circle stories just from all the story day projects that I did. So if I want to fit something into that particular node, I can't really. I mean, just based on the nature of this new project, where I'm working on it for multiple days, I can't quite fit one in there. But there are a lot of characters that are really closely associated with that. So, for example, I have a story called Mother's Little Helper. And Mother's Little Helper is about a woman who is victim of domestic violence, and she has this genie type of character, um, and so she who grants all of her wishes. So every morning she wishes just to forget the previous day. And she has a son, and she wants the genie to protect protect her son. Um, but all the characters are from various circles and circle stories. They were sort of fleshed out in these circles and circle stories. So that's why I put it in number 8. Circles and circles is 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Okay. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. There you go. So a lot. It's somewhat arbitrary, but it's flexible because if you have 28 stories and you start off with a story idea, they're not always going to fit really neatly into all 14 nodes. But Mother's Little Helper could have fit into the Living Needle because it's kind of a plant monster. The genie is kind of a plant monster. It could have fit into the Incarnate because I'm not sure if this is how the story's going to go, but I think it's going to turn out that the genie is really tied to the mother character much more directly in terms of her abilities and what have you. That's a fun story. She wishes for her son to have a better life. The genie ends up creating this. Ideal sort of girl in the mother's mind. And then the son comes out of the closet, and then so the genie, the ideal girl, turns out to be this sort of sinister thing. The mother supports the son totally, but she also recognizes that by creating this genie through her wishing for this picture of a perfect life, the genie in the body of this perfect girl is going to have this sinister sort of destructive tendencies, destructive qualities, sort of absorbing all the hate and the rage and all the unfulfilled dreams and all that sort of stuff into one character. So they'll have to run away from this character. The genie's probably going to kill the abusive father, more than likely. That might be fun to write. Very cathartic to write. Not my father. Just abusers. Not that the value of a story is. This is a previous episode. Not that the value of a story is in the catharsis. I'm just saying catharsis is one of the effects that you could have. But anyway, so that's about it, really. I had a previous video where I explained all of these, but just, real quick, I could say, mute is birth defects, living needle is idiosyncratic species, Gobellatrex is physical change, sort of arbitrary random physical change, like, the metamorphosis, for example. Jelly Halo is amalgamation of, combining things like animals. Like werewolves, were animals like that. Troubles and Struggles is golems. Bubble Fox is power development through ambition. I have Thanos right there. Accidentally. And Sinatra. The Incarnate is Phenome Messiah. I have Dorothy there. Semi-randomly. Coincidentally. Circles and Circles is that whole series of story day challenges. Tiny Hotels, that series of 9 characters arranged on this grid. Metacarpals is a story of a character with 10 worlds in his fingers, which I should be working on today because it's Saturday morning. 1111 is a series of 11 theme and variation structured stories. Slaughterboxes is detective stories. Far Colony is space exploration stories. Thanos again. And the Life Abundance Apocalypse is the loosely structured stories where it disregards the basic schema of reality and degenerates based on composition by improvisation. So self-indulgent episode, but if you're my grandkids and you're ever wondering what the weird Metatron cube is that I'm obsessed with, and you want to try to edit my stories, sorry that it's a pain in the butt. But anyway, see you in the next episode.